Assalamu alaikum my dear students. Today I will demonstrate you about the different types of ECG which are dependent upon the different patterns of the heartbeat. So first of all, talking about the sinus tachycardia, we know that in the sinus tachycardia the number of beats are increased, frequency is increased. So that's why the difference between the two beats decrease. You can see here the TP interval has decreased. Now talking about the sinus bradycardia, we know that in the sinus bradycardia the number of beats are less because the heart beat is very much less. So that's why the distance between the two beats increases. So this is the sinus bradycardia. Now talking about the SA nodal block. So in SA nodal block we know that uh, block occurs between the SA node and the AV node. The impulse which are produced by the SA node cannot travel from SA node towards the AV node. So what happens that the impulses from the SA node are produced, followed by the atrial depolarization and the P wave appears. Now what happens that the SA impulse, the impulse that is generated from the SA node cannot travel to the AV node. So that's why the whole QRS interval disappears here. You can see that the whole QRST interval disappears. So then again AV node, this is the then again what happens that the pacemaker in the AV produce this pattern, this QRS T complex, and you can see that the distance between the TP, the time between the beat is increased. Now why the time between the TP is increased? Because we know that the ability of SA node to produce impulse is greater than the ability to produce impulse by the AV node. So SA node can generate greater intensity of impulses as compared to the AV node. So that's why the time between the TP number of beats are decreased, and the time between the TP is increased, because SA node can generate impulses with greater intensity as compared to the AV node. So now talking about the first degree heart block. So in the first degree heart block, what happens that the pathway which transmit the impulse from SA node towards the AV node is narrowed. So due to this narrowing, what happens that the impulse cannot travel with as much pace as it does in the normal circumstances. So what happens that the impulse travel from SA node towards the AV node very slowly. So that's why the PQ interval is prolonged. This is the atrial depolarization. So the impulse, you can see that the impulse has traveled slowly towards the AV node. So that's why you can see this, the PQ interval is prolonged. So this happens in the first degree heart block.